This conference will now be recorded.
So the command what I've given to Sanjay yesterday was, I just said that okay fine, this is what this is the bare basic command as such, to create a Terraform, kind of do that apply and all that stuff. But you'll have to be very careful about which folder that you're creating. In my case, I have a folder called development out here, I have a folder called staging out here, I have a folder called testing out here. So let's do one thing. Let's kind of forget about it and let's start afresh. Okay, let's start something fresh and let's again revise the concept that is like kind we discussed yesterday, so that it can be beneficial to everyone. Okay, like is that okay, guys? Or do you all think that it's not worth the time that we're spending out here?
Yes, please go ahead.
Please good.
Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do again is like just start out from the beginning. So I'll just say okay fine, file, I'll say open a folder. So we'll open a new folder as such, and I'll say this is Terraform test 2. Okay, and I'll say select the folder. So it's going to open a new folder, and inside this folder the first file that I will be creating is what is known as a Terraform main.tf file, right? So that is the basic file that I need. So I'll say okay fine, great, give me a file called main.tf, and I'll say okay, this is my main file right now. And what I'm going to write out here is very simple. I'm going to visit the Terraform official website and I'll say Terraform Azure provider, and now it will say okay fine, great, Terraform Azure provider is front of you. Now tell me what you want exactly out here. So what I'll say is I'll just copy this entire block, like sorry, this entire block out here, which is going to create me the resource group. So let's try this out on a resource group level firstly. So I am saying the provider is Azure RM, and I'm saying the Azure RM hyphen resource group and giving an alias name. I'm saying this is RG, and I'm saying the name of the RG is something like, or I won't declare the RG name out here. Okay, let's not declare this out here. Let's not even declare the location out here. Then how will I declare it here? I'll say var dot RG name, something like that. Okay, so I have not defined my variable file yet. So what I'm going to do for now is like just let's say put this out here, and I'll say open up a variable file. I'll call variables.tf. So I want to variabilize now, and these two are where under Terraform test 2. So if I go into the folder view, it's my folder, okay, new volume H, and under Terraform test 2 you have a main and a tf file. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the variable file is I'll say variable, I'll say Azure resource group, or I'll say resource group Azure, something like this, resource group. And I will now say the type here is a string. I'm not giving any value, and I'll say description is something like this is the name of the Azure resource group, and this will change from one environment to the other. For a dev it will be dev-rg, QA it will be QA-rg, stage is going to be stage-rg, production is going to be production-rg, right? And now I'll also say a variable type called location, and I will say the location out here is something like, even this is a type, and the type here is string, and the description out here is, this is the value of the location. Done. I'll say save. Now I'll come back to my main file and I'll say okay fine, I don't want to hard code all these values out here. I'll say var resource group var dot location, and as and when you come here you should see these references. This is what tells you that you're writing in the, or you're heading in the right direction. I'll say save. Now what I want is that I want a separate tf var file for development, which can tell that the development resource group name and which will tell the development resource group location. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll say create a new folder out here, which is called development. And as and when I do it, I have a development folder. Even in this particular folder, I'll have a development out here, like an empty folder initiated. Okay. So what I'll do is that I'll go inside development and now create a file called, now I'm creating a file called dev.tfvars inside the development folder, right? This is inside the development folder, and I'll basically define my variables here. Now I'll say, okay, fine. The resource group name is something like, for a development environment, it is dev-rg. So I'll just say dev-rg, give it in this way, dev-rg, which is the resource group name and development environment. And I'll say the location out here, or just exactly pull the name of the location from here, and I'll say the location out here is like East US 2. I'll say save. We'll also format the document. So let's say format, and even this needs to be formatted. I think this is good. So I'll just say format this out, and I'll say even format this out. Now what I'm going to do is I'll open up a new terminal. I'll say new terminal, and the very first thing that I'm going to do is firstly AZ login, because my login might have been expired, so I am doing an AZ login out here. And now it will direct me to the Azure portal, and it'll say, okay, fine, sign into your account. Now I'll take my account out here, and I'll say sign in. It says, okay, fine, login successful, and now it will basically get the context, and it'll say, okay, fine, you this is your tenant and all that stuff, which is great. Let me also go ahead, save this out, and save this out before doing anything. And now what I'm going to do is I'll say Terraform init. Okay, that's the first command. What is this going to do, guys? It is going to initialize the backend, right? So it's going to download all the plugins and etc. that are required, and it will give me a workable template. So I'll say Terraform init, and now it says, okay, fine, I am going to the HashiCorp website, and I'm downloading all the plugins for the resource provider called Azure RM that you have kind of mentioned out here, and the initialization is successful. And when the initialization is successful, right, you will get a folder like this, inside which you have multiple providers out here, like inside which you will have a provider like this, Windows something something, and then you have something known as a Terraform Azure provider. Now because of this provider only, you are able to basically play around with Terraform right now, right? Now what I'm going to do right now is, this is the step where it's getting a little confusing, right? So I'll say Terraform plan, and in the plan I will mention something called -out parameter, and I will say that the name of the plan is dev.tf plan, but this plan should lie inside something, what, a folder called development, because this is something that I'm working on, right? But the working folder that I am right now is directly the parent folder, which is Terraform test2. I want to save my file inside development. So what I'll say is that dot backslash, meaning go further into a folder called development, and then save a file called devplan.tfplan. And you also need a variable file, isn't it? Because you have not declared anything out here. So I'll say -var -file, and I'll give the name of the file as, see, this file is where, again, it's inside the development folder. So I need to go from this particular folder, from the working folder, into the development folder, and then I would say dev.tfvars. This is the variable file. Now I'll also say that the state file is going to be lying inside the development. Okay, it's development, this is right name, and I'll say this is dev.tf state. So the extension for each of the thing is something that you'll have to be very kind of concerned about, meaning you'll have to be just a bit seeing what is the extension out here. For a plan, it is tf plan. For a variable file, it is tf var. For let's say a development file, it is sorry, for let's say a state file, it is tf state. And now I'll say enter. And now what it's going to do is that, see, it's giving me a tf state file inside the development folder, and it's now telling, okay, fine, whatever that you're planning to create, now I will make sure to save it in something known as a tf state file, and I will use these variables called dev.tf vars as the reference variables that I need to create. So again, will plan create, guys, will plan create anything for me on the Azure portal?
No.
Right? So it's only going to plan, right? It's not going to do anything. Rather, it's just going to tell that, you know what, there is one plan added. This plan will basically do one thing. It will create something, but it won't destroy anything. I'll say great. Now, this is the command where we kind of got stuck, right? So it's telling dev apply and then the name of the plan, and the plan is inside that particular folder, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll say Terraform apply. I'll say hyphen state. I'll give the name of the state file here. I'll say development hyphen. The name of the state file was what? It's called dev.tf state. It's called dev.tf state. And here I will give this. So the command works like this. At the end, you'll have to give something known as the plan. And before the plan, you need to give something known as the state file. And I'll say enter. Now it's going to create a state file now, because you are doing what? A Terraform application of your, the application of your Terraform is what you're doing right now, right? Now it's going to save a file called dev.tf state. It's going to be a JSON file. Under this JSON file, it will save all the configuration of your infrastructure in that particular given format, and it will provision you, the resources that you need out here. So if I now go into my environment out here, right, and if I kind of look at my resource groups, and it will take some time initially to provision. So after some time, you will be able to see something known as a dev-rg, which is dev-rg created in what? EastUS2. And the state of this particular environment is being maintained in a file called dev.tf state. If I look at this particular state file right now, it's now creating a file called dev.tf state, wherein it is like, kind of telling itself or telling Terraform itself that, you know what, I need something like dev-rg to be created a resource, and this is the state that I maintain. This is the state of the configuration that I kind of maintain out here. Guys, any questions with this implementation? Anything?
Yesterday we created one main TF file. Uh, Sorry,
This is the main.
TF state file. Yeah,
Correct. So
means
yeah, what
we
happened yesterday is that we were doing multiple demos at the same time, right? So that's the reason we ended up creating a state file out there, and then we went inside the folder and said, okay, fine, we need state files for each and every environment. So yeah, please go ahead with your question. Sorry.
yeah, since we have the main TF state file, it was overwriting. Even I tried to give the same whatever you declared now, it is overwriting that same thing. So if I create now for QA, will it be
Right.
right on dev TF state or the
No,
new?
it won't do that. So what I'm going to do out here is, how did I create now, Sanjay? Is that I said, in a Terraform plan command or in a Terraform apply command, when I did an apply command, right? My command was something like this. So let me copy this out and let me paste it in a notepad. So my plan command or my apply command was this, and even before this, my plan command was something else, right? So I'll say, okay, fine, let me go to the plan command, and this is what my plan command looked like. So in my plan command, I clearly said that, okay, fine, the out file is going to be somewhere like this. Variable file, pick up from the variables, and then create a state file out here called dev.tf state. Now I'll do the same thing for QA, but now I will create a folder called QA and a file called qa.tfstate, meaning something like this. Now I'll say, okay, fine, come down to the main, parent folder, and I'll say create a new folder out here. I'll say testing or QA, whatever you can call it. Let's say okay with me. Inside this, I'll now create a new tfvar. So I'll say it's qa.tfvar, and in this file, I'll just declare the same parameters out here. But here it's going to be what? qa.rg or test-rg. East-US, I'm good with that. Right? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna initialize anything right now. I'll just say CLS clear screen, open up, start on a new page. And now I'm gonna say Terraform plan. The out file would be inside the testing folder, because now this is the development folder. So let's collapse this. Inside the testing folder, I need something like, sorry. Inside the testing folder, I need a file called qa.tfplan. The variable file would be what? qa dot, sorry, dot something called testing, and then qa dot tfvars. Then the state, now I'm going to declare a new state now inside the testing folder, something called qa.tf state. Now what it's going to do, okay, now it's telling okay fine. So it's telling, please enter a value for location and all that stuff. It will throw me an error because I have not saved this file. This is something basically that we need to inculcate. If you don't save it, it won't see that there is anything inside it. It's still considering it to be a blank file, and it will now throw me an error. So I should have saved this file. So that's the reason I'm it's not getting the parameters. It's not getting the parameters for, let's say, the location, or let's say the resource group, and etc. And then it's like, kind of stuck in this loop telling that, what, I'm not finding this parameter, and now it'll throw me an error telling that, what, name and location cannot be blank. I know, I understand, because I have not saved this out. I'll say okay fine, save this out. Oh, aren't we recording this conference since that time? We were recording the session, right? Okay. I'm not sure why that notification kind of came in. Fine. So now I am doing, let's say, a qa.tf state out here, so that this is now going to give me a new state file as such. Right. So what this is doing right now is that it's giving me a new plan. It's giving me a new state now, and it's telling, okay, fine, please use this particular. The plan is saved to something like this. Please use Terraform apply. Now what I'll do is again Terraform apply. Now I'll use the same command as such that I used earlier, which is Terraform apply. Now the state file is going to be slightly different. It's going to be testing, and then it's going to be qa.tf state, and the plan is also going to be what? Testing qa.tf plan. Now what it's going to do is that it's not going to override your development plan. It's rather going to create, sorry, it's not going to override your development state. It's rather going to go ahead and create a new state for QA. Meaning now you have a new state file, and this new state file is going to track the changes to the QA environment. You can do a same thing for staging, for production, and you can have different values for each and every file out here. You can have, like, let's say, different values for each and everything out here. This is how you can kind of maintain the state of your infrastructure. So I'm having different environments out here, and for each and every environment is such, I am making sure to have a state file, and I'm making sure to have separate files for each and every environment, so that my environment changes can be tracked out here. Now the advantage of this is that, let's say you want to create a resource group now, okay, let's say you want to basically go ahead and create a resource group, sorry, a storage account now. So what I'm gonna do is like I'll say okay fine, same in Terraform, kind of provider out here. I'll select storage account and I'll say fine, this is a storage account creation, and I'll just take this block and I'll paste this out here. I'm just taking this block, pasting it out here, and here I'm just saying that this is storage account, and here it's telling the name of the storage account, it's hard coded the value. Now it says resource group name should be from what, Azure rm dot example dot resource dot name, because here the name of the resource group went as example, but in my case it is what, rg, right? I'll have to give this particular thing out here. It's not example, but it's rg. It's rg dot location. Now it says two references. There are two references that are being referred out here. So it's doing an interdependency kind of a model out here. And here it's hard coded. Everything is hard coded. I don't want this to be hard coded. So firstly, I'll need to declare variables out here, right? So what I'll do is like in my variable.tf file, I'll give a new variable called variable, and the variable name would be storage account name. I will say this is a type of a string, description optional. I'll now save this out, and inside going to development, into the development state file, sorry, into the development tfvars, I can give a new parameter or a new parameter called storage account name out here, and I'll say this is dev storage account store account 2abc xyz001. I'll say save. So in dev vars I'm doing that. I'll copy the same thing and I'll also go to my, let's say, QA, into my QA vars, and also save this as what, QA store account, something like this. I'll say QA store account and all that stuff. And also I have a couple of parameters like account tier and all that stuff, which again you can not hard code and parameterize it. Like let's say you have a requirement to create development in QA and LRS, but production and staging in, let's say, a highest queue like GRS or RAGRS. You can also parameterize this out. You can also have these parameterized. I mean, just declare them in the variables and make sure that they are declared in, let's say, the TF vars and all that stuff. Now, if I go ahead and let's say do a Terraform plan, I'll again say the same thing. For development, I'll say the out file would be something like dot development. Inside this folder, you have a plan called devplan.tfplan. And you basically go ahead and look for a file called, a variable file called.
In the storage account, you didn't declare where dot name.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Good catch there. Yes, I have to do this. So I'll say where dot storage account name, which is great, and I'll say go to the references and see whether the reference is getting kind of populated out here. Good one. Thank you for correcting me out there. Yes, thank you for that.
Yep.
So I'll say var file. I'll say going into the development, and I'll say dev dot tfvars, and I'll say state file is the same state file. Now see, I'll use the same state file out here, which is called development state file, right? Because that is what tracking all my changes. I'll say development and / it's going to be dev.tf state. And now see, it's again going to use the same state. It's firstly locking that state file so that no one else can kind of make those changes out there. And after it logs those particular changes, it'll kind of override those changes and it'll tell you, okay fine, there is a new thing that I need to add right now. There's something known as a storage account that I need to basically also track, and it says the plan will create one resource and all that stuff, and then you can start applying that out. So let's wait for the plan to kind of complete, Now it says, you know what, there is one resource that I need to add, and this resource has so many properties as such. All those properties is also something that I'm going to add. These are the default properties basically, without saying that I can go ahead and add this out. And it's saying the name of the storage account, right, is something like this, which is picking from where? Dev.tfvar, right? It's picking that value from where? Dev.tfvars as such. And now if I come down and say, let's say for the application part, I'll say again same thing. Let's take the same command. Let's not do this. Okay, send plan out, apply, yes, this one. So the same command, terraform apply, state file is something like this. I'm giving explicitly telling that this is the state file and this is the plan, and enter. And now what it's going to do, it's just going to go ahead and create the infrastructure for me and make sure to store that infrastructure into the dev.tf state. Now you can have multiple state files, no one will override anything else, meaning dev won't override qa won't override dev. It's all kind of going into a proper configuration as such. Guys, good with this? Any questions still here?
In the variables.tf, if we want to change the values, so it again asks for replacement when we
Like these values, like
yeah.
see in the variable.tf, right, I haven't mentioned any value at all.
No, at
Like
the
I am
dev.tf bars.
oh, dev.tfr, yes. So dev.tfr, if you change this value, right, you'll need to do a plan and you need to do an application out there, because you need these values to be now propagated into your Azure portal, right?
Okay, so new plan.
No, not the new plan, the same plan. I'll use the same plan, but this plan will be overridden. This plan will
Okay.
override the state. This
Okay.
plan will
Without
override the state
deleting,
as
right?
such
Yeah.
without deleting. I mean, it depends again. If let's say if you're coming here and saying that the value of dev store, it's not dev rg, it's dev1 rg,
Okay.
and you're giving the same value to it, then it's going to override. It's going to delete the dev rg and then going to create a new dev rg for dev1.rg for you. So
Okay.
it depends upon what you're trying to do, because here you're telling resource group name is something like this and you declare the value of the resource group as resource group, and you're referring this in the main file as this, the name of the resource group as such. So now what you're doing is that you're changing this particular name out here. So you're changing the the name of the state file, or meaning you're changing the name of the object directly out here. So what it's going to now do is that it's going to tell that, hey, you know what, the name is changed, meaning the user now wants me to delete and recreate something new. Okay, did you get the concept, Akila?
Yeah, yes.
Any questions here, guys? Anything, guys? Anything that I can take?
But we're maintaining TF states without deleting only, right?
So again, the thing is that you're maintaining this TF state without deleting QA state. You're maintaining a dev state without having to delete the QA state out here, meaning you're maintaining two different environments as such. But within the same environment, if you want to change the name, okay, let's say if you're declaring in the dev vars, you're coming here and declaring the name. Okay, your question is that if I change the name out here, right, in dev, I say it is not dev rg but dev1 rg, right?
Yes.
So let's also see that what will happen if I say dev1 rg. Okay, meaning you're changing the name of your resource group that is going into the development environment from dev rg to dev rg1.
Yes.
What is your state file now has?
Devarch.
The name is dev rg. The development state has what? Dev rg. QA state has what? QA rg. Because in the QA state file, in the QA tfvar, you mentioned this as QA-rg, right?
Yes.
Now if you apply the plan again, now if you apply this out once again, let's say this one, or let's say firstly the plan. what it's now gonna do is that now it's telling that okay fine, I have a new value for the resource group which is called dev hyphen rg hyphen 1. Instead of dev hyphen rg, now have a new value called dev hyphen rg hyphen 1. And now it's going to tell you that okay fine, you are changing the existing value. You're making sure that, or you're telling Terraform essentially that you know what, this value is changed. Meaning where is this being referred to? It's being referred to in variables as resource group, and it's being taking a reference here. Meaning you're changing the value of your resource group entirely. Meaning what it's trying to do is, see, it's trying to add two new resources and it will also destroy two new, because your storage account is also lying in the same resource group. If you delete that resource group, even your storage account is going to get deleted, right?
Yes.
So if you look at the thing out here, it's telling you know what, the
Replacement.
resource group must be replaced, and the new resource group will be something like dev-rg-1. It's a force replacement, and even this must be replaced because when I'm replacing the resource group, I'll end up deleting your storage account, right?
Oh,
So this is how it's actually going to act.
okay, clear.
Now ARM is going to act a bit different than what Terraform acts. If you give a new resource group to ARM in the same place, right, it will create one. It won't say I'll go ahead and delete the existing and create one. No, it's an incremental approach. Now this is essentially like a declarative approach. Like this is a pure declarative approach where it says, you know what, this is what your declarations are and all that stuff. And if you want to create a new resource group, right, then you'll have to have a new block for it. You'll have to say something like resource something like this, and this is rg1, and the variable is something called rg1, and you basically need to have a new variable called rg1 out here. So you'll have to do all that editing out there. It's called rg1, and then you need to have a variable for rg1 that is getting declared out here. So just save this out. So it's saying create a new resource group and all that stuff. It's called var something like this, rg1 out here, and you'll have to declare a new variable called rg1 out here. So this is what you will need to do if you need to create a new resource group as such within the, let's say, the same thing without having to destroy the existing one. Does this clear your question, guys? Let me delete this block. Guys, is this execution mode or is this execution methodology okay with you all? Any questions, anything that I can take, anything that is not clear with this? Let's take this out and say dev-rg. Let's put the same value back again. And now if I look at the portal, then I'll probably have something like dev hyphen, okay, should basically do a dev hyphen 1. Sorry, yeah, it should have a dev hyphen rg because I haven't applied it, right? So dev hyphen rg, under it will have a resource group out here which is called something like dev storage account something something something, just created an LRS and a location like ECS2. Guys, good until here? Any questions until here?
So we are creating new environments and new states, right? For dev
Correct.
stage.
Correct.
Yesterday we created a TF state file without
Mm-hmm.
giving the path like dev or QA. But
Mm-hmm.
after we created dev and QA, I created, and even if I give the path also, it is going to original TF state file, terraform.tf state
Mm-hmm.
file.
Okay. So it's overriding the Terraform state is what you're trying to tell, is it?
Yes.
Okay, let me look at that. I mean, I'm not sure what command you're really giving out there, and I'm not sure how it's like, kind of acting out. But even if you have even if you have, let's say, a Terraform state in place, it shouldn't, practically override it, because you're kind of telling it to, when application you're telling it to, let's say, go and, pick a specific file, right? But I'll look into that, Sanjay. Okay.
Okay. So I can delete that terraform TF state file and then I can try also, right?
You can try also. That is not a problem. You can do everything that you need since it's a local machine, right? You can do everything that is needed out here. Okay.
Okay. And the file names main.tf or these file variables dot var. So these are all the it should be unique, right? Can't we change the name?
Like for main and for variable, it should be main and variable.tf as such. It can be something like main.dev.tf, variables.dev.tf and stuff like that. But you need to have main and something like this. But when you want to edit anything else like .tf state, it can be dev specific for an environment. The reason behind it is that you need a main file. So Terraform needs to understand what your main file is, right? Because the extensions are almost the same. Now, if you look at the extension for main, it is .tf. If you look at an extension for variables also, it is .tf. Then how will Terraform identify the difference, or how will Terraform differentiate between main and variables? So that's going to be a challenge for the provider, right? So that's the reason they said these two files should be like this. Anything else, it's your wish. Whatever you call it, whatever you do it, I don't kind of concerned about it. Okay.
So to segregate, we need to create the folders so that we can segregate the.
I mean, you don't have to really create folders, but I create a folder so that I have a very good segregation out here. I have a good segregation out here so that I know which environment I'm actually working with. Any more questions with this, guys? Anything else? So the question here is that do we apply in the real time in the same way? No, not at all. We don't even do it at our local level. Then how do you use Terraform with Azure DevOps? Because Azure DevOps is our central piece out here, right? How do you use Terraform with Azure DevOps then? So what I'll do, firstly, I'll go into the folder in where I was like, kind of working with this, which is Terraform test 2. I need a couple of files from this main variable, couple of folders like development, testing, and all that stuff. I don't need a state, I don't need a backup, I don't need all these things out. I don't need a plan, I don't need all that stuff out. I just need a couple of files. So what I'll do is like I'll just kind of save all these files for different folder so that I can kind of copy the entire folder into Azure DevOps. So I'll just say a new folder. I'll say Terraform ADO. Let's call this as Terraform ADO. And what I'll do is I'll just move everything to this, or not move, I'll just copy this out. I'll copy my main, I'll copy my variables, and I'll put it in this particular folder out here. And I will say, okay, fine, this is development. I just need something like dev tfr, and I'll copy it out here. So I'm not copying it again in, let's say, a folder or something like that. I'm just putting out there in the open. And I'll say testing, I'll need a test.tfr. That's it. These are the only files that I would ever need basically to go ahead and create something in Azure. Okay. So I'll say fine. Okay, there's this one. I'll put it here. And I'll come down to the portal. I'll just do a resource cleanup so that it looks clean and we can start it from the scratch. So delete. I'll just say even delete this out. And let's make sure that I have, let's say, something like this particular folder out here, which is good, which is great. I'll come down to my projects and go into a particular project out here, and I'll say I'll give a new repository for myself, and this repository is called as a Terraform repo. I'll say create. It'll come with a main file. I'm okay with this. I'll say clone this out so that I can basically do all my developmental activities. I'll clone this out here and go into my VS Code again, or just say clone VS Code. Say open this out. I'll say open the extension, great. And I'll say basically clone it into a local folder out here. And I'll just select the path and I'll just clone the entire repository out here. So I'm doing what? A git clone again. So I'm just downloading all my code and I'll say open a new window. Like this is what my code really is, and just a readme file out here. So what I'm going to do out here is like I'm going to go into my folder called terraform.test out here, copy this folder, go into the h volume. And this was what? Terraform repo. So Terraform repo, readme file, just pasted this one, that's it. So I'll just paste the entire folder, which consists of a main file, which consists of something like variable file, devvar qavar. So what I'm going to do right now is that, yeah, there are a couple of changes. I'll say this is a sample commit. I'll firstly stage all these changes out here. I'll stage all my changes and I'll say this is a commit for Terraform, and I'll say commit all. I'll say okay, fine, go ahead, push the changes back. And I'm using the main branch directly. I'm not like, I'm not establishing any branching policies and etc. For for this demo, I'm not doing all that stuff. So if I kind of refresh my screen out here, I'll see a file. I'll basically have all these things out. It's like main.tf file. It's like, it has all these things here in main.tf file, something like var dot something like this and all etc. And I have a variable file which consists of all my variables. I have the dev, whatever I had like in my local machine, I'm just putting it out, let's say, in here. So whatever variables and everything that I had, I'll put it in here. Now what I'm going to do is like I'm going to create a pipeline. And this pipeline will do very one simple thing. It will go into this particular repo. Okay, what happened? Unavailable. Why is it so? Okay. Okay, great. So I'll say new and I'll say classic data. And I'll just call this as, let's say, main and Terraform repo, and this is the one basically that I need. I'll say I'll start with an empty job. And I will say that in this particular job, I only want to do one simple activity, just copying of my files. Whatever we did for ARM template, I'm doing the same for copy, and I'll say I'll copy to the drop location. I'll say the contents, like all the contents of this particular source folder, like whatever is there in your source folder, inside this folder, everything, every file basically that is here, which has an extension like tf. Extension like tf, because tf is common out here, right? So I'll say every file which has an extension like tf, please have it copied. So I'll say dot tf star star, and I'll basically say everything that is having an extension like a tf, just go ahead and copy this out. That's it. And I'll say the target folder is what my drop location, right? So I'll say build dot artifacts staging directory. If you can't remember this, not a problem. Go to Google, just say Azure DevOps predefined variables. Come here and say, first thing it says, build.artifact staging directory. So just copy this out. Come down to the pipeline out here. Just say dollar. That's it. So I'm just saying, just copy everything from this folder which has an extension something like tf. Whatever is tf, just go ahead and copy the route, and then finally publish it into the drop location. So I'll say publish all the artifacts, and this is the task. I'll say okay, fine, this is the artifact publishing step. Whatever you have copied, please go ahead and process it out into the drop location. And I'll call this pipeline as Terraform copy template pipeline. Just save and queue. The only thing I'm doing here is making sure that every file that which just has something like, or which something just has something like tf, should be copied into the drop location. That's the only thing I'm suggesting my pipeline to do. That's the only thing I'm telling my pipeline rather to do, is that take this all and copy it out as such. Guys, any questions with this process? Anything till here? Anything, guys? So if I look at my drop location right now, it has all these templates. everything that I want starting with TF is something that got copied. What I'll now do is I'll now go a release pipelines. Okay, I'll go for a release pipeline right now, and I'll say, okay, great, I need a new release pipeline. And this release pipeline, will call this release pipeline as what? A Terraform pipeline. Right? And I'll say add the artifacts. The artifacts, please pick up from this particular pipeline called Terraform. Just add this out. That's it. This is the only thing that I'm doing right now. So just creating a pipeline with a stage called development or with a stage called dev. I'll say, okay, fine, great. Go inside this out. Now, guys, can you all help me? What could be the tasks here that I need to add? What all that we need to do out here? If let's say you need to create a Terraform.
Template deployment.
Okay, so how will ARM template deployment help me in Terraform, Akila? Because ARM templates are again a different syntax, right? It's a JSON syntax. Terraform doesn't do that. So let's imagine that I have like given you all these Terraform templates out here. Okay, I just gave you all these Terraform templates, all the TF files and etc. I just gave you all these things out. Okay, and I'm asking you to basically go ahead and do a deployment. So how do you do a deployment? Like from your local machine, let's say you want to kind of provision Terraform infrastructure. So how do you provision the infrastructure? What commands do you use? Anyone, guys?
Terraform apply?
Okay, so is that the first command that you will be using?
No, init
Init, right? So
and
this is the first
plan.
command, right? And plan. So what all? Init, plan,
And apply.
apply, right? But even before this, okay, should my agent that I'm on which I'm kind of doing initiation, planning, and application and all that stuff, should the agent that I'm performing all these tasks, should it not have something called as terraform.exe? Because even before we did all these things out, what we did, we installed the Terraform in our local machine, right? We installed something known as a Terraform and Azure CLI and all that stuff in our local machine, right? So don't you think that the agent on which you're running this should also contain these terraform.exe?
Yes.
Right? You should also have the agent containing the same, right? So what I am going to do firstly is I'll firstly say install the Terraform tool and only then start all these commands. So what I'll say is I'll say add the tasks and I'll say Terraform. All these things are Terraform out here. For y'all, for me it is telling to add. For y'all it will be something like get it free. Something like this. Please click on this and say just install. It's just going to be one step out here. You need to go into the marketplace and install it. So if you kind of do a Terraform, right, it'll tell you get it free. Okay. Once you click on get it free and kind of go into the installation procedure, just click on install and then you'll get something like add out here. Okay. Sorry. So now I'll say Terraform tool installer and I'm saying install one specific version of Terraform. How do I decide which is a specific version of Terraform? Like let's open my PowerShell out here on my local machine and I'll say Terraform hyphen version. If I give this command, right, it's telling that what, you're running on a version called 1.0.5 and even this is like outdated, but the latest version is 1.0.8. So I'll simply say that the version is 1.0.8 that you need to install on the agent. This is what I want you to do. After installation, please begin something known as Terraform init. It's saying, okay, fine, this is the RM provider, which is great. You have like multiple providers like AWS and GCP also. Now it's telling, okay, what is your command right now? I'll say the command that I have right now is a command called Terraform init, and I'll say this is, let's say, the configuration directory, meaning inside this particular file or inside this particular directory out here, meaning inside this directory out here, you will see something known as all these files out. So I'll just give the working directory telling that, you know what, there's something like this under Terraform copy, under the drop location, you will find all my configuration files. So I'll say this is Terraform what? Init. The first command is initialization of Terraform. And now it's asking me what is my Azure subscription. So I'll say this is my Azure subscription. I do not have a service connection for this as such. So I'll say this is my Azure subscription. So again, I need to establish a service connection in Azure out there. So what I'll do is I'll use an existing pipeline. So I'll just say leave. Let's come to this particular project. And even this project has the same configuration that we did out here, like Terraform and all that stuff. So I have a main file, variable file. In my main file, I'm just doing this same thing that I did, and I have in the variable files, I've just declared the variables like storage account and etc. And I have a development.tfr, a qa.tfr with all these names out here. Okay, and I just had a simple copy pipeline which copied them all, and I already have a Terraform release pipeline out here. And in here, I'll just edit this pipeline because this already has a service connection established. That's the reason I'm using this out. Same thing, Terraform tool installer, Terraform init. I'm just saying, go into the particular drop location and kind of take all that file out here and basically take all these files here. That's it. That's the only thing I'm telling it to do. And here I'm telling, okay, fine. The Azure subscription that I need to use out here is something like Azure development subscription out here. And now see, one specific thing out here is that it's asking me for something known as an Azure storage account. Now, guys, any idea on why it's asking an Azure storage account out here?
It will
Is it because
store
to
the
save the
file.
TF state?
Exactly. It was to save the TF state. Yeah, Chandra, you were telling something. I'm sorry I cut you.
Yeah, I'm saying that same thing. So saving the files.
Exactly right. So it needs to save your state file. Your repository doesn't have a state file out here. You need to save your state file, for which you need a storage account in Azure with a container within that where you can store all the configurations out here. So what I'm going to do is I'll say for my temporary makeshift, I'll just create one particular storage account in LRS tier, and I'll do it manually this time. You can also do it using a PowerShell script and all. You can have a storage account in place and have the container in place and all that stuff. So what I'm going to do out here is I'm going to say, okay, fine, create a new resource group called test.rg, something like this, where my state files can be maintained. I'll say state store account to ABC so that it's unique. Again, is used to LRS, which is okay with me for now. Advanced review and create, like nothing else that I'm doing. Just doing a review and create out here. And once this is created, I'll just create a container inside it called Terraform container. So just create a container known as Terraform container out here. And then I'll start using this out, okay? So let's give this a second so that it will go ahead and create this out. So it will take less than a minute to go ahead and create it out. And after it gets created, I'll just make sure to create a very simple container inside it called Terraform container. And this will be the container which will hold all my state files as such. Now, what is the advantage of this is that if I store my state file here, I can apply networking policies and I can apply RBACs on top of this particular storage account to only let the DevOps team members kind of access this out, right? So anyone like a developer and all, they won't be able to access this container, so they won't be able to access the state file essentially. This is how I will essentially this is how I'll essentially control my state file. So I'll say this is Terraform. The container name is Terraform, and I'll just say create. So now what I'll say is like I'll kind of take the storage account out. I'll go into the release pipeline. I'll say okay fine, the storage account is not this, but it's a different storage account. Like this is the storage account that you need to say, and this is the container basically inside the storage account that I'm kind of selecting. And this will be, it's asking key, right? It's just saying what is the name of a state file that you want to create. That's it. Just saying what is the name of the state file that you want to go ahead and create it out. And I'll say inside this particular container called Terraform, just create a state file with the name called development.tfstate. Secondly, it's telling plan. Now I am giving the same thing out here, telling that what, it is Terraform plan. Now what I did is that the same command, like meaning you can add the same task called Terraform, and you can change what command you want. Validate, plan, validate and apply, destroy, what do you want? So I added another task like this called, sorry, kind of remove this out and remove this out, and added another task like this called plan. So I have like added a task and I said it is plan now, not initialization, and see how I passed the additional parameters. Whatever that I am doing using the console output out here while planning, when I applied something known as a Terraform plan, I'm using something known as out file, which is plan variable file, and then the state file, right? Here I haven't used a state file parameter. You can also do that. And I'm just saying, okay, fine, these are the parameters that you need to pass out, and then give me a plan called, kind of dev plan, and variable hyphen file is development.tfvars. This is your plan. Finally, this is your application. And saying validate the template and apply a plan called dev plan, which got created here. Which got what? Created here. Go ahead and apply this out while the creation. Save the pipeline and I can say create a release, and I can use this release now to provision a storage account using a Terraform template or using, let's say, the Terraform files out there. So it's just going to do one simple thing out here. Go ahead, firstly, kind of initialize the job and download everything to the agent. That's that's the default what it does out there. And then it's downloading this tool, see, called 1.0.8, and even after it's downloading, it's doing one more thing out here. It's setting a path variable. What we did, we downloaded it and set the environment variable, right? So that the machine can identify the Terraform commands. Right now is doing the same thing, and then initializing the Terraform backend, downloading everything, giving a plan for me. Now the plan says, see what I want to create all this stuff, and the plan tells you that what the plan to apply is this. Add is 2 because I'm creating a resource group and a storage account, and then finally I'm applying this out. The same thing is also available in this tutorial out here. So if you say DevOps Terraform, Azure DevOps Terraform, something like this, automate infrastructure deployment in Azure using this one. The same thing is a bit more briefly explained in, let's say, the Azure DevOps labs. So I can also give you all this link to kind of look this out. And this is how we exactly do, let's say, in a real-time environment as such, where you are creating your all templates using a pipeline in Azure. Now what's going to happen is that, see, the state file which is like very important for me is now being stored in a storage account, which is now being accessed only by a few people, and it's only being applied using the Azure DevOps pipeline. This is the scheme of execution that I kind of rely on. And do you get errors? Yes, you would get a lot of errors and etc. Like you get a lot of errors basically while kind of applying this all that stuff. So you need to basically resolve those errors and then do the application. So I want you all to run into errors so that you can kind of search that errors and then resolve it out. So this is how you create the pipelines using Terraform, guys. Any questions here? So whatever we are doing on the local, I don't want it to do on the local right now. I want to rather use the Azure DevOps pipelines in order to go ahead and create things out. Okay. Any questions, guys? Anything before we close the session for today? Is this okay? Are you all able to understand this, or is this confusing?
Yeah, able to understand, but pipelines and all we need to practice, just
Okay.
as you told.
Any questions, guys? Anything that I can take for now? Okay, if there are no questions, guys, then I'm going to close the session for the day. Have a great day, guys, and we'll meet the same time tomorrow. And we'll discuss on more on the open sources. We'll have to start with Jenkins tomorrow. So we'll say what Jenkins is and etc. And we'll touch base upon Jenkins and Octopus, and then we'll go into Dockers and Kubernetes. This is going to be the way we are going to proceed out here. Okay. And one more quick thing, guys. So I am like available in the institute from today. So I am also taking a few offline classes, and I'll be available in the institute out here till the afternoon. So if anyone wants to come down and kind of clarify any doubts or anything like that, I'll be available around. Okay. Okay. If there is, yeah. So if there's no more questions, then I'm going to close for the session for today, guys. Have a great day ahead, and we will meet tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where is
Thank
the
you.
institute located?
So it's in
It's
SR Nagar. The institute is located in SR Nagar.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great day ahead.
thank you.
Thank you.